Okay, y'all, I think it's time for us to do a little urban legend from North Carolina. Now, at the time of this video or this recording, we are in Yancey County in North Carolina, and so what I like to do is try to find a story or an urban legend or a ghost story from the county that we visit. And so I was not able to find one from Yancey County, so what I decided to do is I have went on a site called North Carolina Ghost. If you go www.northcarolinaghost.com, you're going to see all types of ghost stories, urban legends, and stuff like that. And a lot of these stories have a root of truth to them, even though they go off on the exaggerated and fantasy. And so I've got Sandra with me here. You can say hello.
Hello. I will say this: there's a lot of folklore in the mountains. Seems to be. I think back in the day there wasn't a lot going on as far as socializing with others because families lived so far apart. The population wasn't as much, so they made these stories up to entertain in the evenings. I think a lot of times.
Yeah. Now, the story that we're going to be looking at tonight, or well, on this, well, it is nighttime when we're recording this. We're going to be looking at a story that has an African American background, and so this story here is about Boo Hags. Boo Hags. Now, Sandra had no idea what I was going to talk about, and so. But I told her on purpose, I wanted her to be just as surprised as everybody else what we're talking about. But Boo Hags are a part of the African American tradition from the coast of North and South Carolina. According to tradition, one of the best ways to keep a hag out of your house is to lay a broom across the front door of your across the front of your door. A Boo Hag can slip into a house through the keyhole, but if she sees a broom, she has to stop and count every straw on that broom. By the time she's done, the dawn will have come and she has to return to her skin. Now, that is the background of the story that I'm going to actually talk about. And you might be saying, what in the world does all that have to do about, skin and stuff like that? Well, that's what I'm going to go through. And so there is a story that is being told. Now, as far as a Boo Hag, I've been looking up exactly why they call it a Boo Hag, the boo part of it, because a lot of the stories that I've been able to look into, they just call them a hag or a witch. And so what some information I've been able to glean is that when a person dies and their spirit stays on earth, or let's just say they become an evil spirit, that's where they're called the Boo Hag. They call them a Boo Hag. They give them that nickname, the Boo Hag. And so, but at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys this story, and then I'll going to give you some definitions on some of the words that they talk about. Okay? It says here, once there were two men who had been friends all their lives. They married two beautiful women about the same time, and everything seemed fine. But one day, one of the men came to his friend and asked him, "When you wake up at night, is your wife in bed with you?" The other guy says, "She sure is. Why do you ask?" And then he says, "When I lie down in bed at night, my wife is with me. But when I wake up in the middle of the night, she's gone. But then, come morning, she's back in bed." "Man," said the friend, "I think you're married to a Boo Hag." Now they knew this was serious. A Boo Hag is a kind of a witch that can slip out of her skin and fly around at night and cause all kinds of trouble in the world. A Boo Hag can kill a man by, something I thought was weird, it says, just by sucking all of the blood from his body out through his nose. So that's what I think is why. There's a kind of a, I guess the African American version of the Boo Hag has more of a vampire background to it.
Well, you could kill anybody by sucking all the blood out of them.
I know, but yeah, through the nose though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's just, I don't know why, but that's just through the nose. Anyway, it goes on to say, they'll straddle a man and sit on him at night so he can't move and he can't breathe. And so there's a saying that they have. They call it ride all night long, or they'll say, don't let the hag ride you. That's the saying. Don't let the hag ride you. That's kind of a little saying that came out of it. You know, I guess when you go to bed at night, don't let the bed bugs bite. They would say, hey, you have a good night, don't let the hag ride you. And so that's kind of the same term as in don't let the bed bugs bite.
That almost sounds like sleep paralysis.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
That is interesting that you mention that. That's interesting that you mention that, because we're going to talk about that. That's actually something it's going to come out of this. A Boo Hag is not something you'd ever want to meet, and sure not something you'd ever want to be married to. So the man asked his friend what he should do. Okay, he says, you got to wait until she slips out of her skin in the middle of the night, and then you find that skin, look under the stairs. That's where Boo Hags like to hide their skins. You take that skin and pour salt and pepper all over it, then she won't be able to get back into her skin. And so that night, the man went to bed with his wife and pretended to sleep. About midnight, he felt her slip out of the bed beside him. He waited for her to go downstairs, and then he got out of bed, and then he quietly hid where she couldn't see him. He saw his wife pull off all her skin and roll it up into a ball and hide it under the stairs. Then she flew right up the chimney, going to cause trouble in the world. Alright, it says, well, that man didn't waste any time. He went and got that skin and salted it and peppered it real good, then rolled it back up into a ball and put it back under the stairs where he found it. Then he went back to bed and waited until early in the morning, when he heard a noise of something coming down the chimney, and he heard his wife's voice speaking softly. And this is what she said. Skin, skin, you know me. Skin, skin, this is me. Skin, skin, you know me. Skin, skin, this is me. So I guess she was trying to get the skin to come back on her. But he knew with all that salt and pepper, she couldn't get back into her skin. He waited and heard his wife speak again. Skin, skin, you know me. Skin, skin, this is me. Skin, skin, you know me. Skin, skin, this is me. And he knew that she was stuck without her skin. He heard her come up the stairs and pretended to be asleep. He felt his wife crawl into bed with him and wrap herself up real tight in the sheet. But he reached his hand over and could feel something warm and raw and rubbery in the bed next to him. After that, he didn't need to pretend not to sleep. When the morning broke, the man got up and said to his wife, time to get up, time for breakfast. But she said, I ain't getting up. I'm sick, and lay there wrapped up tight in the sheet, not showing 1 inch of herself. So she was all balled up like a cocoon. He couldn't see her. The man said he'd go get the doctor, but she said the doctor cost too much money. So the man said he was going to go hoe the garden. The man went outside and hid under the window. Sure enough, he heard his wife come down the stairs and call out again, "Skin, skin, you know me. Skin, skin, this is me. Skin, skin, you know me. Skin, skin, this is me." That was enough for that man. He went down to fetch the conjure man who would know what to do. We're going to talk about the conjure man in just a minute. He told the conjure man his story, and the conjure man told him to go home and start a big barrel of pitch boiling, and he'd be by shortly. So the man went home and built a fire in the garden and started a big barrel of pitch boiling on it. Soon the conjure man walked up the road, and the two of them went inside and went upstairs where the woman was back in bed, all wrapped up tight in her sheet again. The conjure man said, "What ails you, woman?" And she said there was nothing wrong. But the conjure man wasn't having none of that. He ripped the sheet right off her, and there she was, lying there all raw and bloody. "Man, you done married a hag," said the conjure man. And they grabbed her and carried her out to the garden, where they threw her in that big barrel of boiling pitch and burned her alive. And they said in the end of the story, it says, what else could they do? And so that's the story of the Boo Hag. And so now a conjure man by definition, they're sometimes called a conjure doctor or a root worker, is someone experienced in the art of hoodoo. We're going to talk about hoodoo because you've heard me say hoodoo before. It's really amazing. The African American magical and spiritual tradition, conjure men can help not only with dealing with hags and other supernatural entities, but a good conjure man is knowledgeable in spells to help with such mundane matters as finding love, a good job, or winning in a court case. Hoodoo is a living tradition, and there are root workers practice it in North Carolina to this day. Now, this is what the hoodoo definition is. It's an African American folk magic practiced predominantly in the southeastern United States through rituals of protection, herbal medicine, charming of objects, and ancestor veneration. Let's see, it also says it's like a bad luck. You could, in popular culture, when somebody says hoodoo, bad luck or a person or thing that brings you back luck. Somebody says, "Hey man, that man hoodooed me." You ever heard somebody say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that man hoodooed me. That's where that word comes from.
Oh.
And that's something.
And how is that any different than voodoo?
Well, it is. It actually.
It's different.
It's well, in the definition that I have here, it says, "And a folk magic tradition, a mixture of voodoo and folk traditions with its source in Deep South. Usually involves charms, potions, and spells." And so, now pitch, it can be natural or manufactured, derived from petroleum or coal tar or plants. Various forms of pitch may also be called tar, bitumen, or asphalt. Pitch produced from plants is also known as resin. Some products made from plant resin are also known as rosin, I guess is what we would call it. And so, but at any rate, guys, that is the story of the Boo Hag. If you go on YouTube, there's other people that go a little bit more in depth than what I did. I gave you kind of a synopsis of it, and so but these are one of those stories that do have an African American background to them. And so, but talking about sleep paralysis, it's really interesting. I've got some information here. Sleep paralysis has it says right here, in Newfoundland, Canada, people traditionally call it old hag syndrome.
Oh.
Isn't that really, isn't that wild when you
Uh-huh.
get to looking at it? They call it old hag syndrome. And so where they believe, the old hag is sitting on your chest, straddled, just sitting on your chest, and won't let you get up.
And you can't move.
You can't move. And so, but that is a real, it's something rare that people can have, but it is something that happens. And what they believe is from this article that I got here, it's saying that the body, let me look here, during REM sleep, it says that your brain releases neurotransmitters what it does is it keeps you between waking and sleeping, I guess you could say, and your mind becomes alert while your body still can't move. And it says some of the visual and auditory elements of your dreams may still be playing out, which causes hallucinations.
Okay, so we know that that's what that is in today's time. So back in the day, whenever people, modern medicine didn't realize what that was, then they made up these stories.
Yeah. What some people will actually say is that they're in bed because they're hallucinating and they can't move, but they're still dreaming. They actually see people in the room.
Yeah.
And that's where
that's gotta be terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so they say that they see either demons or they'll see an old hag, especially if they're already passing those type of traditions or those type of stories along to their family members. I mean, if you go to bed and they said, don't let the hag ride you, I mean, you got that already in your brains, already seated. And then let's just say you have one of these sleep paralysis, and your brain's already thinking that. It's like watching a scary movie.
Yeah.
And then you go to bed and you dream about that same thing. It's got to be the same type of flavor. And so, but what's really wild is that it's like you said, without the modern medicines and the things that people used to believe, it's like they used to bury people alive, and so
they used to do bloodletting and different things like that. Yeah,
they would think somebody was dead, and so they didn't, do it. They didn't embalm them like they do today. So what they started doing is they would start putting little bells.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You do little bells, so that way if somebody did, let's just say they accidentally buried somebody alive, they could ring that bell, and it would, somebody up top would, they would hear that bell and they would know that they rang them. But it's really wild, and this is just one of many other stories that, even though we may say, oh, that's nonsense, there's no such thing as a boo hag, it stems from an actual problem, it's like sleep paralysis, like they called it the old hag syndrome, old hag syndrome. And so, any rate, guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. This is again one of the many other. This is just one of tons of other stories that I have, and not all of them are going to be paranormal like this. We've got some really wild stories that we've just recently learned, and we're going to wait until we get into that county. If we don't find any in a county, I do have several that don't have a location, and so I'm saving them from those counties like this one here. And so you guys take care. I hope you've enjoyed it. And again, don't let the hag ride you.
Good night.